Hello and welcome to another 7-minute sofa yoga. In the comfort of your own sofa, you have absolutely no reason why you cannot spare the time to get to know your body better. And we're carrying on with joints, the joints of our body. As we've gone over previously, we know there are joints in the lower leg. From the foot here, it's actually the ankle joint. We've got the knee, the hip. We've got joints through the spinal cord, which we'll go into more detail about in its own specific 7-minute sofa yoga. And we've got joints in our shoulders, elbows, wrists, and at the very top of the vertebral column. The one at the top of the vertebral column is known as a pivotal joint. And it's the two vertebrae, the axis and the atlas, that actually are rounded, and one sits in the other and is able to swing and pivot and swivel, which means there's a lot of potential movement for the head atop of the vertebral column. And there is actually a 7-minute yoga, a 7-minute sofa yoga session explaining all that. The other joints, let's have a look at. So the shoulders and the hips, they are ball and socket joints, which means that there is movement in all directions. And if you know what the knuckle of a bone looks like, sometimes when you've bought one for your dog, you know that there's like a big knuckle bit at the end, and then the bone joint. Now, within the hip, it will sit like this. And then, if you breathe in and create space, you're then able to turn that joint, ball and socket, all round, which means there's a lot of potential for movement there. So we've got those in our hips and our shoulders. We've got hinge joints, which are elbows and knees, which they open and close in one direction. Okay, so it's a hinge. It's almost like a door that opens and closes. Now, in our wrist, we've got planar joints. They glide. They're smooth surfaced and they slip over each other, which does allow for movement, but some of it can be limited. We've got condyloid joints. These are in our fingers and in our jaw, which allow for movement but without rotation. Okay, so you can't really turn those fingers and rotate within a joint, not like you can at the ball and socket of the shoulder and the hip. But you know, still a lot of movement can be made. And then we've got the saddle joint, which you would find in your thumbs, which mean that you've got movement from side to side and back and forth, but again, no rotation. Although if you do hold on to the thumb joint and give it a little twist, then it's the tiniest amount that can be done there. And as with all these joints, you want to keep them working, you want to keep them movable. And so any little movement helps. And while you're sitting on your sofa, you can do all of these movements, even just lifting the elbow to shoulder height. Tune in and recognize that this ball and socket joint here, like this, you breathe in, you create space, and then you can move that knuckle joint all round. You can even do it with the hip, just by picking the knee up and doing circular movements. And what you do on one side, you do on the other as well. And it's so simple. And these are just the very small preliminary stages. Taking a breath in, always lifting up through the trunk of the body, to then make the movement of the hip, the knee, the ankle. You can simply sit with one leg, one foot crossed over the other knee, and flex and point the foot. Keeps the ankle joint mobile. If you do on one side, you do to the other. And it's so simplistic. Even just the act of pulling the knee in to get the foot up onto the sofa, that's your hinge joint. So you're simply hinging, but also using the hips as well. Always thinking, create space to initiate the movement. Get the lift so that the joints separate slightly and then are able to do what nature intended them to do with greater ease. Because it's only over time, when you become very slumped and hunched and you sit around a lot, you don't activate your joints, that they begin to tighten, and before you know it, seize up. So within 7 minutes there, you've got hopefully a better understanding of the joints in your body. Just to recap: hinge joint, saddle joint, planar joint, pivotal joint, condyloid joint, and the ball and socket joint. Okay, so we'll be back very soon with some more 7-minute sofa yoga, getting to know yourself a lot better. See you soon.